Welcome into the Official Jets podcast.
Dangling a steak in front of a lion and you ain't got no cage in between you. He gonna get to that steak.
So let's go inside the matchup.
A motivated Aaron Rodgers is a dangerous Aaron Rodgers.
Game day and every day, score a jewelry touchdown with Kendra Scott. Shop fashion and fine jewelry fit for another winning season at your local store or at kendrascott.com. Shine bright, do good with Kendra Scott.
Gentlemen, a lot to get to after the bye here. Where do the Jets go here in December? 3-8. You got 6 games remaining. You have an interim head coach in Jeff Ulbrich and interim general manager in Phil Savage.
I mean, you got to go to work. That's all you can do. You put your head down and you grind. You try and get improvements. The foundation and the core of this team is already intact. You know, this is a young team. You talk about all the guys that they have under the age of 28 yet to hit their prime. They had to come together collectively, and they have to decide who's going to be the leaders of this team and how they're going to go forward in trying to establish that culture. Whether Ulbrich is the future coach or Phil Savage is the future general manager, you got to do that, you know, for yourself, your core. Right now, we're auditioning leadership for the locker room.
Mm-hmm. You guys played in between those white lines. When he says, Bart says, culture, what resonates with you?
Culture is, it's the approach of how you do things day in, day out. It's how you prepare. It's how you practice. It's how you play the game. Like, the culture is, when there's something that isn't right, the culture fixes it. So if somebody is not accountable to their team, to themselves, because whatever, they're late for meetings, whatever, the culture fixes that issue. That's what the culture is. It's an in-house locker room, legal way of handling all your issues. Every team has them, but the culture fixes those issues.
One thing I want to get to here early is Jets chairman Woody Johnson really wants to win and also understand where fans are coming from, because they're so disappointed with this season in terms of what the expectations were. We were talking about it on prior to coming in here and taping. But Bart, I want you to address that, because you're a guy who not only is commenting in the media space, but you played here as well, as far as what he wants to do to put the resources here behind everybody so they, in fact, can win.
I mean, it goes back to environment, right? It goes back to culture. And you're going to hear us always talk about that, because the culture is the standard, right? And when anything's going right, you have to go back to your mission statement. Does this fall underneath our mission statement? And, you know, you're trying to build something that's sustainable, right? Too often the Jets in this organization has had periods of success, but it hasn't been sustainable, because culture is like, it doesn't matter, right? One guy comes and leaves, another guy comes in, he falls right in line. You know, it's like, okay, this is just how we do things. And you hear it with Mike Tomlin all the time. The standard is the standard. And you have to ask yourself, it's just the standard. What you're doing, you know, representing what we believe and what we stand for, right? And what is a Jet, right? And remember when Rex came here, we had this, what is a Jet? And, you know, you have to ask yourself that, and you have to define that. But that's defined not by what you say, but by what you do and how you play. And that's not about winning or losing, right? When you do things the right way, it just entails that, you know, you may have success. It doesn't guarantee it. But like, when you don't have the same success, you still believe in what the core principles are, because you know at the end of the day, you have a better chance of being successful if you lean on those rules and those morals.
I like what Jeff Ulbrich said this week, Baldy. He says, the tape has no context. That's who we are. That's the DNA. That does not.
The tape is your resume. It never lies. Okay. I mean, whether it's effort, whether it's technique, whether it's a fundamental, like, those things show up play in, play out. And honestly, that's when you come out of that film room on Monday, if they still do those kind of things, you come out, you know, like, the whole team knows. They know, because really peer pressure is such a big part of this thing. This goes back to culture. What Bart is saying is absolutely right. But you don't want to let that guy next to you down. And so, it could be just simple as effort. You know, just getting to the football. Good things happen when you get to the football. Those things are cliches, but they're cliches for a reason. And so I think that's what's really important is, you know, how you see things as a group and you don't want to let anybody down.
Can we speak to those foundational pieces? Because you said you think the Jets do have the potential to have a strong foundation when you have a guy like Breece Hall, you have a guy like Garrett Wilson, you got Olu Fashanu, you got Joe Tippmann, you go on the other side of the ball, you got Jermaine Johnson is going to be coming back from injury next year. You got a Quinnen Williams, you got a Quincy Williams,
Michael Carter. Everybody's young.
you got a Sauce.
And you come in an age together, and you have to understand not everybody's going to come along for the full ride. But, as long as you're here, you have to respect the fact that, the one thing that is undefeated is time. And at some point, it'll be your time. Like, sometimes time is wasted on the young. And it's only when you are running out of time when you appreciate it. But in this league, that can be any play.
Yeah.
That's play to play. That's not game to game. That's not year to year. That's not season to season. It's play to play. And when you play with that sense of urgency in your preparation every day, because it's not just on Sunday. It's what you do in the weight room. It's being accountable. It's putting the film study on. But once you start to be able to, we always say don't farm your own land. Once you be able to make sure that your land is good, then you have to reach over and pull people up, because it's a push pull, right? You got veterans, and you got young guys. You got guys in between. It's important for the middle guys to pull the young guys up and also push the guys in front of them, right? So that's why you hear like, oh man, you hear some of these young guys or people talk about, was it Big Play Slay, right? Mm-hmm. Talking about, all these young guys, man, they infuse energy into me, right? Because they don't eat off it. Yeah, because they don't know what they know. So like everybody has a purpose in a circle of life of football, right? Because we always say like, my mom used to always say like, once a man, twice a baby. Right. But that's true also in football. You come in, you're young, you don't know nothing, then you learn everything, and then you're too old and your mind can tell you what to do, but your body won't allow you to do it. Right. So like to a certain extent, once a man, twice a baby, twice young or incapable or on your way out, right? Just coming in, green, don't know nothing, running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And so like you have to appreciate the circle of life and those that come before you. And when the Jets start getting to the point where it's about committing legacies, right? I went down to Baltimore because I was doing my turkey run, and like I go in their room and it's like all the 57s that have been there, whether it was O.J. Brigance, myself, C.J. Mosley. They say they'll eventually put him there when he retires. True. But you go in that linebacker room and it's a sense of pride that if you strap on, you put not only that number on, but also if you put that jersey on, it has a reputation for a certain style of play that you have to represent. And I want
it's interesting, because, not to cut you off, Bart, but like, the Ravens just beat the Chargers, right?
Yep.
And so Roquan misses his first game.
Yeah.
So who leads the team in tackles but Malik
Harrison?
Yeah, Malik, like
from Ohio State.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, Malik had never played like that before, but he got a chance. Roquan goes down. He's their leader. He's their captain, everything. Malik steps in, leads the team in tackles.
What's happening late in games for the Jets? Why can't they finish? Can you pinpoint an issue here when you speak to before the bye was Indianapolis, or maybe the New England game, or Denver, or you can talk about Buffalo late, or you're not able to complete the comeback against Minnesota. Go ahead.
It's with everything. Like with everything, it comes down to attention to detail, and it's just like sitting and playing basketball, sitting at the free throw line. Like you hit these 1,000 times in practice, but now pressure, right now in the anticipation, your heart rate goes up. You know what's there, but you got to think the game. You can't just react in that game because most games are lost, not won.
Yeah.
And you have to understand.
Used to say.
And you have to understand. Just do your job. Let that person be the one to make the vital mistake. No penalties, right? No self-fulfilling things like because it feels good to you. So now you want to. Mike Tomlin said something one time. I think it was Pouncey. He said, it's a famous clip, and he says, you have to realize that this cause is bigger than you.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, no, he says that on the sideline when he had a late penalty.
Yeah. Like, you got to realize that the cause is bigger than you.
Yeah.
Like, so you can't let your personal feelings get attached to it. You got to do what's best for the team and what's best for the team only. So when you think about that, not going outlaw, like trying to make a play, right? And you look at examples like that, and never to call anybody out, but just teachable moments. Yep. When Clemens in the Buffalo Bills game, when they had to have it, and he circles Clemens, knowing that he was going to have it, right? Then Kyler Murray, same thing, right? Things come back to repeat themselves. And the thing is, you can't just learn, like, and I'm sure Clemens, because I think it came up to that in another game, he was there to make the play.
Yeah.
Right? But Richardson was just too big, too strong, but he was there. So just anticipating, but it can't be just him learning the lessons. Everybody has to learn for those mistakes. I tell people all the time, a veteran's not a veteran because he didn't make mistakes. A veteran is a veteran because he's made all his mistakes and he's learned from it. So when those times occur and they present themselves again, he leans on experience.
Can you speak to the situation that Jeff Ulbrich and Phil Savage are in right now in their interim positions?
Well, I've been in a situation before when my head coach got fired and our interim coach stepped in. Same thing. Defense coordinator gets elevated to the head coach. And, there's a different message. There's a different sound in the room. It's different than what it had been, which isn't always bad. And sometimes it can be good. But, at this stage right now, like, this team has to become more mature. Like, they have to be more accountable. Like, whoever's in charge is in charge, but you want the players to eventually take charge. And so I feel like if you go back to the question you asked Bart about what's happened at the end of these games, at the end of Denver, Indianapolis, like, there's got to be a collective mindset that we're going to make the play instead of giving up the play. And in each case, in every one of these breakdowns at the end of the game, it's either communication. It's the things that you should be fixing on the practice field that show up in a game and they get exposed about a lack of communication or trust or knowing what the other guy was doing, because you always see it. Like, they're always kind of doing this at the end of these games. And that should be fixed out there in the practice field.
All right, I want to get both of your thoughts on Woody Johnson leading the search for a new GM and head coach, but also using the 33rd team. That includes Mike Tannenbaum, former Jets executive, and Rick Spielman to help in this process.
I mean, that's how you know that, he wants somebody from the outside because, sometimes perspective matters, right? And sometimes you can be too close to something and be too personal to it. So you want an objective look. And, he did this with Charlie Casserly, I believe, before. And Ron Wolf, right? So, like, you lean to, these type of things. So it just shows that he's trying to make the right decision. It's not a decision that's made, solely by itself. Now, he's going to take all the information that he gathers and he's going to make the decision that he chooses and what he decides. But he's going to have some of these searches narrowed down and seeing, like, what's the best combination, because I'm sure he doesn't want to do this. He wants to have a general manager that's been played for 15 years, that's passing it down the legacy to his assistant general manager and continue to have that continuity, that one singular vision, right? And be able to build the franchise the right way so that it's sustainable. Like, you can't have this constant turnover because everybody has different ideas about how they want to build a football team. And, if you go from one guy to the next, who's to say that's his vision? So now it's constant starting over all the time.
How beneficial can the 33rd team?
Well, I mean, look, they have not yet in a long time. I don't know the last time we had a general manager and a coach coming together. The way, let's say John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan came in together. Same contract, same amount of years, all that. They came in united. I think for the first time because, Joe Douglas came and Adam Gase was the coach. And, so I feel like, I mean, you can lean on 33rd team. I mean, they're connected to all these different teams. They're looking at all these assistant coaches and all this stuff and the people that build programs. Like, it'd be good if they could come in together, general manager and coach, come in together, share the same vision about how to build a team, type of players they want, the culture that they are looking for, and they see things through the same lens. Like, they have the opportunity to do that for the first time.
So you would like an established working relationship between whomever the GM and the head coach is? Because we can't talk about teammates. By the way, I don't want anybody criticizing us up here because that's tampering, because there's a lot of people talking about prospective head coaches here in the National Football League or GM who are working for other teams. So we can't get into candidates right now.
I don't think that they have to be linked or have previous working relationship with each other. I think they just need to share a similar vision and be able to come together and understand that we're teammates now and we're going to sink or swim together, right? So, like, that way when guys come in, they're linked with each other. Then that means if you do bad or you're not doing your job as far as, developing the culture and the statement, then you're going to hurt my job. And over here, if you're over here, you're not bringing in the right type of players that support the vision that I have on the field, right? Because, once you get to the field, that's a coach thing. But as far as evaluating and being able to build the type of players and that you want, and assistant coaches and stuff like that. That's the general manager.
The Official Jets podcast is presented by Kendra Scott, the jewelry company that's shining bright and doing good. Shop game day ready jewelry styles and so much more at kendrascott.com.
Have we seen anything here recently that you guys point to and say, hey, you can flip it, you can turn it pretty quick? Because you have to build the infrastructure, right? Yeah, you need a foundation in place.
Yeah, but for me, you have infrastructure of talent and players. Like, so this isn't like whoever comes here is coming here with a place that doesn't have a lot of high-end talent. I mean, we got the offensive and defensive player of the year, a 2-time All-Pro. We have Pro Bowlers. We have guys on both sides of the ball that play at a high level. So it's not you got to come here and the general manager got to do a lot of shopping. Like, oh, man, it's going to take us 2-3 drafts to turn this thing around. Like I said, if you just look out to the Chargers and see what they've been able to do, just with a change in culture, they lost their 2 best receivers, they lost their best running back, and, their defense, who's always had the talent but never lived up to its capabilities, did. And that's simply because you bring in a leader, one band, one sound.
Well, to me, the winning teams and the teams that sustain greatness over a period of time, you have 2 things. One, you never stop building in the trenches because, to Bart's point, if you lose receivers, you replace receivers, but you can protect, you can run the ball, you can get your short yardage goal line plays. So I think, because I don't think that they have established that here. Like, I think Bart's has said it for 2 years. They haven't had the right kind of defensive lineman. There's certain things that are missing. Big guys up front that can just eat cheeseburgers and double teams. Offensive line has always been unstable. They've been trying to build this line here since Joe Douglas came here. They've been trying to build it.
Yep.
But if you look at, like, if I go back to, my last year in Dallas, like Jimmy Johnson comes in and they go 1-15. But the foundation, 4 of the 5 starters in the offensive line were already there. They drafted Stepnowski, and then they had the best line in football. So if you look at Detroit and the culture they're building, what do? They invested in Penei Sewell. They invested in offensive linemen. You look at Jim Harbaugh, right? Let me go get Joe Alt. There's a bunch of receivers out here that can make us look good. And I feel like, no, they went Joe Alt. And he's been the difference maker up front. And so, to me, fix your trenches. Like, that's what's got to get done. The quarterback is helpful, and he can help a lot of things out if you get the right guy. But build in the trenches. Like, I'm watching John Franklin Myers just eat it up in like, you see these guys leave the nest here, and he's playing great in Denver. But they wanted to build in the trenches with Sean Payton, and that's what they've done.
I do think there are pieces along that offensive line that
Robert's
taken over, should be excited about. We mentioned Tippmann. I know you've been a big fan of Fashanu coming in. John Simpson, the underrated year. Morgan Moses, I know he's on a 1-year deal. Tyron Smith on a 1-year deal, but Morgan Moses has added a lot in terms of culture and also just being
Ages wonder.
Yeah, right. So, and then on the defensive side, it always starts in the middle, right? And Quinnen Williams remains one of the top defensive interior pieces in football.
Mm-hmm. You just need somebody next to him, right? Because they've been able to team up on him. I think losing Al Woods was very underrated in what he was able to provide, because you need somebody. No matter what, this game is about big men. You know what I mean? And it's about, and you need a big man game. You look at Quinn, and Quinn is a big man, but he's not the biggest man, right? You need, like, for everything that you love about Metabike, it's Travis Jones.
Yeah, sure.
That's the anchor, the immovable force that allows you to have to account for 2 people. Because football is about math.
Yeah.
Right? When you're basically playing in the run game, it's 10 against 11. Because the quarterback hands off the ball, he's not part. Now, some teams got running quarterbacks, and that's a different story. But it's a really 11 against 10. So how do you change the math? So if it's 11 against 10, and then I have a guy that's going to eat up 2 blocks, now it's 11 against 9. So now the math changes. So now I can be able to change the math to make sure that I can be dominant and make a team one-dimensional. That's what this game's all about. We see the 2 positions in this league that I think has been undervalued, and I think a lot of people missed on, was running back and safety. And you're starting to see the teams that have the most success have dynamic safety play and dynamic line and dynamic running back play. And they're directly correlated with each other because, You talk about a safety that can come into the box and make sure that they can play the run and the pass. And that's kind of like that new chess piece. Everybody wanted to go and go with these light linebackers that can run and play the pass game. Well, how does that work when I have a running back that's bigger than you and he's leaning on you, we're pounding you, and you can't get off the field because I'm in 2nd and 4. I'm in 3rd and 2. That's an advantage. So you look around the league, I want you to look at everybody around here and all the good teams, and I guarantee you they have good pair of running backs, and they're running the ball at a higher rate than most other teams.
Yeah,
they're going to have a say, big shift. Look at Detroit with Kirby and Branch, Philadelphia, Winfield, right out there, Gardner Johnson,
even
Derwin James.
Kansas City post Tyreek Hill, right? You got Pacheco back. The Buffalo Bills have made a complete shift.
Yeah.
Got the Baltimore Ravens running the football.
But but Buffalo is never stopped building in the trenches. They upgraded the center position, the left guard position. They've started every game this year. You look at their they keep drafting defensive linemen.
Yeah.
They continue to draft.
Just traded for Phillips, I believe, right? Yeah. They traded for Phillips and brought in Quentin Jefferson, our old buddy.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Jets Seahawks this week.
Yeah.
Coming off a bye. Your expectations for the green and white, now that they had an opportunity to actually, Jeff Ulbrich hasn't been able to breathe, basically, when he's come on to the job post that game against the Vikings before the Jets played against the Buffalo Bills. But now him and his staff had a chance to really dive into a self-scout. Well, how are they going to attack this now?
I mean, they had to go back and do some self-scouting. They have to do some tendency breakers and stuff like that. That's usually what it is leaning on the analytics and see how other teams see you and what your tendencies are in down and distance, what your tendencies are in formations, personnel, and figure out what do we do well. That's what the Jets need to do. What do we do well? What is our bread and butter runs? What are our bread and butter pass concepts? What's our bread and butter personnel? And on the defensive side as well. Like, who's guys that are maybe playing at a higher clip that we need to get on the field more, and that's what that's all about. And you give them opportunities to prove themselves, but the numbers don't lie.
But we spoke a lot about identity here this year. Lean into it.
Use the Jets offense.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks like they just call plays.
Yeah,
like nothing really. It doesn't look like
flow. Yeah.
Something sets something else up. Like if I go to these winning teams right now, like Detroit, Philadelphia, and some of these teams, like I know the foundation is certain runs. They're gonna, and as long as they're within a certain range score wise, they're gonna stay with that particular program. I can't say, and part of it is just the injuries and things they've had with the Jets and the turnover. But I mean, I want to find see an identity to this offense, because just in the last 2 weeks, you've seen identity to Seattle's defense. Like you could see Mike McDonald and how he spot drops and his matchup zones. And you can see they've made changes at linebacker. They've made a lot of changes. But you can see how they're now, if you take a look at what Baltimore did a year ago when he was there, and you now watch Seattle, you could see a big part of that defense in Baltimore now being played by Seattle.
Is there a lesson here, Geno Smith coming back to the Jets? Not so much from a Jets perspective, but just from we're going to close here, from a young quarterback. Developmental.
I mean, well, sometimes you just have to understand. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes, some people are microwave popcorn. Some people are a stew or a gumbo.
Yeah.
It takes a little seasoning, takes a little, time to let things come together. I think not only is, Geno Smith an example of that, but Sam Darnold's an example of that, and Baker Mayfield is maybe the biggest example of that. Sometimes, it takes maturity, but it also takes a village. And it takes people to understand to be patient with some of these guys and realize that not all quarterbacks are created equal. You have to figure out where they came from, what they learned when they were in college, and how much experience they had.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the young guys coming out right now, we've seen them not have a lot of experience in college. And you're betting on talent, and they've been forced into situations. I'm not talking about the Jets. I'm talking about throughout the league.
Yeah, Jared Goff. He was giving up, and he was supposed to be the stopgap guy in Detroit, but the pieces around him are really good. And the quarterbacks, they always know this. They always know that if the organization has their back. Actually, it's every position. Every player knows if the organization really likes them. And it's not just the contract. You give somebody a big, fat contract, and you know that the organization, they just did it. But they they don't really believe in you. I believe that Tampa believes in Baker.
Yeah.
I believe that Minnesota right now, they drafted a quarterback, McCarthy, to be the guy, and Sam Darnold just keeps delivering. And he understands the system, and the coach is very, very creative, and they change things up quite a bit. You can see there's stability in the building for these guys to succeed.
Stability with you guys. Remember, rate, review, subscribe on YouTube. That's to it all, and wherever you get your podcasts.
All that.